This meeting is being recorded.
Good day, BCPI followers and supporters. I greet you and wish you a good day, good night, good morning, whatever the time may be as you are watching this. I am Sonia Gaobolae. I am the Communications Research and Advocacy Manager here at Botswana Center for Public Integrity. Now, if you have been following our social media, you would know that we have been running a Know Your Institution series, wherein we have been profiling specifically the Directorate on Economic Crime and Corruption, the DCEC. We have been profiling them for the month of March. You would have seen that we've been sharing some fun facts, some tidbits here and there about what the DCEC is and what it does. So today, as part of Know Your Institution series, we have gone and talked to the DCEC itself. I have here with me today the Public Relations and Communications Officer at the DCEC, Mr. Lentswe Motshoganetsi. I'm going to be engaging him on essentially what we've been talking about in terms of this DCEC, but to get a first-hand account on what it is they do at the Directorate. Mr. Motshoganetsi, welcome to Know Your Institution.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be part of your show.
Thank you so much. I'm sure the BCPI followers and supporters will be happy to see you. I think we can dive right into our conversation. Perhaps my first question to you would be, in the simplest terms that you can, how would you describe what the DCEC is to a layman and everyday Motswana at home? In the simplest English you can master.
Can you repeat your question again? There was a bit of an interruption.
Oh, sorry about that. I was asking that if you were to explain or to introduce the DCEC in the simplest terms that you can, what would you say DCEC is?
Yeah, DC investment that was formulated and found strictly to address and redress issues relating to corruption. Address, I mean, teaching the public or taking the subject of corruption to the public, then redress, punishing, or try to, set the law on those who are perpetrators of corruption. So the DCEC was formed in 1994 with a three-pronged strategy. The strategy involves investigating matters that are reported to the DCEC, and then educating the public about the evils of corruption. And then while we do that, we also do prevention. Prevention, this is a situation whereby we try to work with all sectors of the economy to try and, sow the seeds of anti-corruption and help them in cleaning the systems which may lead to corruption. So basically, the DCEC investigates corruption, educates the public about corruption, and helps in preventing corruption in Botswana.
Okay, no, that's a detailed explanation. And perhaps also I would ask then, since the name is the Directorate on Corruption and Economic Crime, the curious part is usually the economic crime part. What does that entail, or what does that mean?
Economic crimes involves crimes that are denies the revenue from being accessed by government. There's the diversion of revenue that is supposed to be accumulated by government, but there are means which are done by criminals in order to divert this revenue. One of the crimes that we investigate as the DCC is money laundering, whereby proceeds that are derived from, a criminal offense are cleansed or are run through the system so that ultimately that money looks genuine or that money looks to be a legitimate business. One of the economic crimes that we may think of is tax evasion, whereby tax that is supposed to be collected by government is diverted, or corruption bribes are paid so that that money doesn't reach the government. Economic crime may also include projects that are done by government And then instead of being done duly and to the amount that they've been paid for, those projects, or somehow they are delivered in substandard. That means the government is paying for the service that the government is not getting. So that will also constitute economic crime. But the DCC investigates matters of corruption, but also economic crime. We follow these issues. We follow issues of money laundering and try to bring the process back to the government.
Okay. And then perhaps on the corruption side of things, usually with BCPI work, we sort of make that distinction between grand corruption and petty corruption. Can you perhaps clarify if of the two, you only focus on one, or if both, how that works? Does the DCEC perhaps make that distinction between what is known as petty corruption and that which is grand corruption?
Yes, corruption can be divided into those two types, petty versus grand. At the DCC, we pursue all the types of corruption equally. Because for corruption to become grand, it has to start at the petty level. So while we go after grand corruption, or we go after what we call the big fishes of this world, we also target the small ones or the little ones. We've got programs that are targeted to lower levels, even as young as primary school, so that we inculcate the spirit of moral uprightness, integrity, and principled citizens of the country. So whether it is a small fish that is reported to the DCC or it's a grand corruption, we pursue them both. Like I said before, for it to become grand, to start small, to become now a grand type of corruption.
Okay, and I hear you saying that perhaps in your public education initiatives, there are times where you target primary school students. Can you perhaps maybe explain the kind of engagement that you have with that kind of demographic, the younger kid that you alluded to?
Yes, at primary school level, we have in Setswana, in English, will translate to truthful sport that you go around teaching in primary schools, teaching them moral uprightness, teaching them that cheating is something that can lead to criminality. We do this so that we can cultivate these young chaps so that they become responsible citizens of tomorrow. At junior secondary school, we've inculcated or included corruption into the syllabus in some subjects such as social studies, commerce, and religious education, so that they are taught about corruption, they are taught about morality. They grow up knowing that they will face a future which is bleak if corruption is left to manifest. We teach them that they are future leaders, therefore they should be upright and leaders with a high esteem kind of a stature. So this is what we do. Even at senior secondary schools, we've got some subjects such as development studies where corruption is also part of the syllabus of those subjects.
Okay, and for the benefit of our viewers, can you just repeat the name of that primary school initiative? I had lost you for those few seconds when you were talking about the name of the program.
Yes, the primary school program is called the Boammaruri campaign. Boammaruri campaign is a mascot. Yeah, Boammaruri campaign. It is meant for primary schools. It's a mascot that plays with the students in order to inculcate the spirit of moral uprightness.
Okay, no, thank you so much. I think now perhaps we can look at the global look. I think as much as, DCEC is a Botswana created and based institution, neither you or the country exists in a vacuum. How, on a general level, would you say corruption is going on a global scale? And then perhaps we can now bring it to the Botswana level.
Research has shown that corruption is one of the biggest problems globally. In sub-Saharan Africa alone, we lose more than $1 billion annually due to corruption. So Botswana has not been spared of this road. So we continue to see issues that led to the foundation of the DCEC still recurring even up to today. You may remember that DCEC was formed as a result of scandals such as dubious allocation of land in and around Gaborone. Today, still we have issues of land being a sore, a pain within the DCEC. We have issues of procurement and tendering. Issues of tendering still a pain within the corridors of the DCEC. We have issues such as permits, driver's licenses, roadways. Botswana is one of the countries that are well globally or internationally in terms of the ratings in fighting corruption. However, there is a lot that we have to do as a country in order, to clean Botswana from this scourge of corruption. One of the issues is the involvement of the public or the community. What you are doing is a good job in terms of fighting corruption, because we need that advocacy. We need to teach Botswana to say, you know what, if you don't stand up and fight corruption, if you only point fingers, we are going to wake up without nothing. Anything that we are living for today or what we have today will not be there tomorrow, because corruption is slowly and surely tearing apart the wealth or eating away the wealth of this country. So Botswana is signatory to international conventions coming to us. The first one is the SADC Protocol Against Corruption. So as SADC, there is that protocol that Botswana signed or ratified. Botswana has now to implement or live up to that protocol. So most of it involves, involvement of the community, engagement of the community in corruption. There is the African Union Prevention and Combating of Corruption Convention. Botswana is signatory to that and commemorates International Anti-Corruption, the African International Anti-Corruption Day on the 11th of July. There's the international one, which is the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. Botswana is signatory to that one as well. So you also observe the International Anti-Corruption Day on the 9th of December every year. So this is to say Botswana is part of the globe. And again, we spoke about money laundering a while ago. So money laundering is the cleaning of the money. Most of the money that is laundered is not laundered necessarily within Botswana. So it traverses the borders of Botswana, it goes to other countries. So we have to have that network of countries so that we can follow the trail, and they can help us even following the trails, even within their jurisdictions. There's money that is coming from Botswana, that money being proceeds of corruption from other countries. So these international treaties and conventions that we've signed come in handy in terms of assisting the DCEC, assisting Botswana in pursuit of that loot that has happened either here or in other countries.
Okay, no, thank you so much. I think perhaps before we continue, I'll just ask that you switch off your video. I see that here and there your network gets disturbed. So for clarity of audio, perhaps let me leave you off the video aspect. We'll switch it back on as we close our program. All right. Thank you so much. So you in your explanation, you mentioned the issue of the fact that rightly so, corruption is currently a global problem. And we, still on that global level, we saw during the COVID-19 for the past 2 to 3 years, when the world was fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, the general conversation was that the world saw large levels of corruption being carried out during that time, especially because a lot of democratic principles and measures of accountability had been set aside in most countries. Do you think that was also the case in Botswana? Has the DCEC found that during the time of COVID, perhaps our corruption levels went a bit higher than usual?
Yes, thank you for that. I can confirm that as the DCEC, we received a number of allegations pertaining to COVID-19 procurement. To be exact, more than 68 reports that were received by the DCEC alleging corruption during COVID-19 period. So we realized our investigation, most of our investigations are still continuing on those matters. Some we've had to ministries because they were administrative issues. Some we've closed because there was no sufficient evidence in those matters. But maybe I can quickly touch on those that we are investigating. What we that use of procurement, there was a problem of inflation of prices. We don't know if this inflation was due to or what, but we realized that there was just unjustified, raising of prices during COVID-19. And then were issues during that time whereby some people supplying for the commodities that the government would pay, but nobody, no supply. Those are some of the things that were registered here at the DCC. But I don't want to say we received a lot of cases of corruption during COVID. No, the number or the average of what we receive on an annual basis remained the same during the COVID-19 pandemic period. But of course, we had matters that has to do with procurement during that time.
Okay, and would you say, not necessarily relating to the COVID-19 cases, but on a general, in your investigation of corruption allegations and cases, are there perhaps institutions that are external to Botswana, whether they are of certain countries or international institutions, that you engage in the discharge of your duties, and specifically investigations and following up of issues?
Yes, we do have bilateral relations with other anti-corruption agencies, starting with SADC, whereby we have neighbors, and then going to Africa, and then international. For instance, Botswana has a memorandum of understanding with the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, whereby instead of the delay or the lengthy process of mutual legal assistance that is sought through the Director of Public Prosecutions, we can, at inter-agency level, source information from them or say to them, we are looking at this citizen of yours who's allegedly having businesses that side. So they can quickly run, gather information for us and bring it to us without having to go through the process of mutual legal assistance. So indeed, we have a very cooperative relationship with our neighbors. And then maybe I should call attention again to some international associations, such as the Commonwealth Anti-Corruption Associations in Africa. So that agency or institution also helps. It is housed here in Botswana, and it is housed at the DCEC, members within Africa. So when we do our investigations and then a member of the Commonwealth is involved, we can quickly, through interagency, be assisted in arresting or in concluding that matter. We also have a special investigations unit within South Africa. It is also helpful in assisting the DCEC on behalf of the South African government or the South Africa as a country in trailing a lot of matters that come to us. If you are aware, you will find that most of the cases that go international, money is deposited in international banks. And for us to access those banks, we have to go through, seek permission from the country, and then seek permission through the anti-corruption agency from that country. And then, yeah, in most instances, we are able to achieve our mandate.
Okay, no, it sounds like the framework in terms of interagency cooperation, external stakeholders is quite strong. In terms of the internally now in Botswana, how do you perhaps work with institutions like the Botswana Police Service, the Directorate of Public Prosecutions? What is the relationship there? How do they factor into your role of fighting corruption on a day-to-day?
Yes, that's a perfect question. There is that interagency cooperation within Botswana. As you may know, the DCC can arrest and detain, but we don't have detention facilities. So the Botswana Police Service is one of the key institutions which helps us when we want to detain suspects. So Botswana Police already is a mutual and a very important partner and contributor to the fight against corruption. We have the Directorate of Intelligence and Security Services, the DIS. The DIS has capacity to go before we come and get information, gather information for the DCEC, bring it to the DCEC so that we can, go and investigate. So the DIS is also an important partner in the fight against corruption. We've got the Botswana Unified Revenue Services, BURS. Sometimes we investigate, the investigation or the evidence is not sufficient, but somebody has been doing business in Botswana. So the BURS comes in and then they check if this person has been paying tax. And then if not, the BURS will come in handy and implement their mandate. So there is a harmonious relationship between the organizations such as Botswana Police, DISL or BURS, even the Botswana Defense Force. Just a week ago, we were raiding some companies in Mogodishan. We were using BDF trucks to load those cars in. So even Botswana Defense Force is one of the very important contributors to the fight against corruption. The DPP is also part of the, the team, because we only investigate and then send matters when we are satisfied with the evidence to the DPP. But we don't tell the DPP whether to prosecute or not. It's up to the DPP. So we also engage the DPP during investigations, so that at the end of the day, we can have like a prosecution-led investigations. The issues that I also alluded to earlier, mutual legal assistance, this is the prerogative of the DPP and the Attorney General's Chamber. So when we need to pursue a matter that is internationally, we rope them in to use their expertise and their responsibilities in order to help us, attain this quest.
Okay. Perhaps there on the issue of the DPP, I think I've always wondered, is there a responsibility of the DPP towards the DCEC, perhaps to provide clarity in instances where they decide to prosecute or not prosecute issues from the DCEC? Is it enshrined in law that they must come back to you and explain decisions that they took regarding information that you handed over to them?
No, the DPP is an independent body. The DPP is independent, and according to the Constitution of Botswana, nobody tells the DPP when, how, and whom to prosecute. So the DPP has a sole prerogative of mandate, whether to prosecute or not to prosecute. What we do, we work hand in hand with the DPP in sending the files to the DPP so that they can be prosecuted. We've never had a situation where maybe there is reluctance to prosecute. Most of the times we advise each other. For instance, there was a time, even today, we still have that problem whereby cases take time to be prosecuted at the DPP. It takes time, and then suspects end up dying, witnesses end up dying, some relocating, and then these matters end up being thrown away because they cannot be prosecuted anymore. We sat down with the DPP and we signed what we call a service level agreement. One of the components of that agreement was that we will second the lawyers. The DCC will hire lawyers and second them to the DPP so that they can assist in pushing files which are at the DPP. So this undertaking, it helped a lot, it assisted a lot, because the DPP was faced with a problem whereby lawyers, after gaining experience, they go to private practice, perhaps where it's a bit lucrative. They go to mines, they go to banks, where maybe it's lucrative. And then the DPP was having a problem with experienced lawyers. But the DCC came in, and we are working towards that. It's still a problem. We haven't emerged, from the mist yet, but we are working around the clock so that at the end of the day, we can have corruption matters being fast-tracked at court. But maybe I should also say, to cover that one whereby matters are at the DPP, we've also started what we call parallel investigation. Parallel investigations are done through a legislation that is called the Procedures and Instruments of Crime Act, whereby now we go, while we launch a criminal investigation, we also launch a civil forfeiture investigation, whereby now we go after the assets that the accused person has acquired. So these two trials, they don't depend on one another in order for the other one to be successful. So somebody can be discharged and acquitted criminally, but we will take the assets because we don't need a lot of technicalities. We don't need a lot to prove on a civil forfeiture matter as compared to a criminal matter. For criminal matters, there is a lot that you have to do. Your evidence has to be tight. But for civil forfeiture matters, there is not that much that is needed. So we have succeeded in, getting this process of crime from people who were accused of corruption.
Okay, no, then it sounds like there's progress in terms of creating an efficient legal framework around fighting corruption. But now, piggybacking off the issue of our interagency, is there perhaps maybe in instances where the relationship were to break down between you and any of the agencies that you work with, is there are there any measures that are provided for that would dictate how such matters are resolved, or recourse for any institution that would be involved in perhaps a clash of mandate, as the case may be?
Yes, you should perhaps become, you should perhaps, I think, be mindful that kind of these agencies are serving one government. So our purpose, our target, our focus is one, our destination is one. We may be launching from different points of launch, but our destination is one. So wherever and whenever there is that confusion, let me take an example maybe between Botswana Police and the DCC, whereby the DCC investigated a matter, and then we find later on that it is a matter that belongs to Botswana Police. We don't take it to Botswana Police, we just conclude it. Even the Botswana Police, once they have a matter that later they realize this is corruption, is for the DCC, they don't bring it to us. They go with it full force so that at the end of the day, we can achieve that. So this happens through other institutions. The DCC has a clause whereby part of the act, it is within the act of the Corruption and Commission Act, whereby it says, while investigating matters of corruption, and then we realize or some other offenses come in while investigating, the DCC is allowed to also carry on and investigate this matter to its end. So even other agencies have that. So normally when there is a clash, we try to sit down, dialogue, and, make headway in terms of what would happen. But like I said, we have this cooperation whereby when we have an operation, when we have a case, we also try to rope in others, particularly if it is a matter of national interest or it is a big case. We try to rope in others so that each and every agency can bring its expertise and lead to the finality of that particular matter.
Okay.
But of course, maybe you wanted to be specific and talk about others that we saw them going to court. I would say maybe it was unfortunate that we had that incident. But normally we sit around the table, we dialogue, and then that matter is resolved amicably.
All right. So dialogue is the go-to measure when dealing with issues of clashing mandates and interest and so forth. So I guess maybe in this instance, like you're saying, ending up at the court of law would be a matter of last resort, and one which is not one that you were looking to end up at. Okay. All right. Perhaps then we can continue on to the challenges that you encounter in fighting corruption, because as you said, the DCEC was established in 1994, and by all intents and purposes, the fight against corruption goes on. It continues to date in Botswana, in sub-Saharan Africa, in the world. What would you say are the challenges that the DCEC is faced with in the discharge of their duty?
Thank you. Well, one of the key challenges that we find as the DCEC in fighting corruption is inculcating or initiating what we can call mindset change within the public. We are serving a public which is not interested very much on their rights and privileges in as far as fighting corruption is concerned. Botswana are the people who like to, babu, but when it comes to action, they do not act. Karangar, we have an inactive civil society whereby participating on matters of corruption, demanding accountability from institutions such as the DCEC. So there's a lot that the DCEC has to do in teaching Botswana about the evils of corruption and mobilizing Botswana to fight against corruption. So that is one of the challenges that we have. Botswana are passively fighting corruption, not actively fighting corruption. Point number two, we have limited resources. we may realize that some of the cases, they go outside the country, they go outside Africa. So we need the resources so that we can pursue this route that has happened in our country. You may know that the budget, as the budget speech was read in, is it February?
Yes.
The DCC is technically the custodian of that budget. So every project, for its implementation to be, sound, the DCC has to be part of that. Or the DCC has to have an oversight in that project. So a lot of projects are collapsing, are failing because of the oversight of the DCC not being enough or not being adequate in order to keep tempo with these projects, which are spread across the country. So some of the problems why the projects collapse is because of corruption. So we have a challenge. We need more resources in order to tackle corruption. Resources also in terms of manpower. Nowadays, people who perpetrate corruption are very intelligent. So they move on with the times, they move on. Technology has advanced. In the past, when the DCC was formed, you needed a check or you needed to go inside a bank in order to transfer money. But nowadays, even with a cell phone, you can transfer a lot of money internationally, just using your cell phone. So technology has advanced, the DCC has to advance. We need to train our investigators, we need to train our officers so that they are sound law enforcement officers, so that they are technocrats in fighting corruption. They can be able to stand before courts of law and testify. So these are the challenges that we face as the DCEC. And then one of the challenges again is the slow disposal of cases, particularly at the courts and maybe at the DPP. Like I said, we're working around the clock in order to arrest this situation, but there is very low disposal of cases at courts. We end up losing some of these cases because suspects have died, witnesses have left, some have died, or some have, lost hope in it. So this is some of the things that we need to do and that we are doing as part of the strategy in order to keep tempo with the dynamism of corruption.
Okay. I think perhaps when you mentioned the issue of, Botswana being quite inactive and perhaps a lacking reaction from civil society. From our perspective as BCPI, being part of civil society, we find that a lot of the time, Botswana don't have adequate or factual information. And for the DCEC specifically, I was wondering, do you find that Botswana know how to, just in Motswana, how they go about reporting what they think are incidences of corruption to the DCEC? Like in your engagement of the public, do they seem to understand how they engage DCEC, how they are supposed to engage DCEC?
Since the DCEC was formed in 1994, I should say progress has been made in terms of educating Botswana about corruption. When the DCEC started, Botswana were reporting any other matter to the DCEC. But after, public education, robust public education, today there's a difference. At least what they report to the DCEC, at least 90% of it has an element of corruption in it. Although 30% of what is reported annually is classified for investigation, but at least 90%, at least there is that understanding of corruption. But let me also acknowledge that there is a lot that we have to do as the DCEC in terms of educating Botswana about the DCEC, corruption and reporting corruption. We have not done enough yet. So there is a lot that we have to do in terms of educating Botswana about corruption and, cajoling them to support the fight against corruption, understanding that when you see somebody doing something that is wrong, it is your responsibility to report, because in some instances they report, and then when we want somebody to come and give evidence, they will say, or they will be scared to say, not me. So we want Botswana to stand and say, yes, I can testify. Yes, I saw them doing that. Yes, I was part of the deal and they cheated on me. Something like that. We want Botswana to do that, not to say, no. I don't want to follow you and stuff like that. But yes, my sister, there's a lot that we have to do to educate Botswana about corruption.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I think perhaps then for the benefit of those, who are watching our conversation, can you just take us through the process that is expected when a Motswana sees what they think is corruption and decide that they want to take action and bring this to the attention of the DCEC? Can you take us through a step-by-step explanation of what happens from the moment that I witness it and I will decide that I want to engage DCEC?
Yes, the DCEC has several avenues through which we can report suspicious transactions. Suspicious transactions, I mean, anything that you suspect to be dubious or not to be lawful. One of them is through a toll-free number, which is zeros. I don't know if I should give it now, I'll give it later, but we've got a toll-free number, we've got cell phone numbers, we've got landline numbers that one can call immediately and lay a report. And then over and above that, we have a Facebook page, which we also receive some reports from the Facebook page about a suspicion or suspected incident anyway. We take these reports and classify them for investigations. So once somebody has reported, also when you report, maybe I should hasten to say, you've got a choice, whether you want to be known, you can stand out and testify, or you want to be anonymous. If you want to be anonymous, still we receive this report and try to pursue it from our side. But after you report, there is what we call a classification panel. That is made up of a head of units within the DCEC that sits on a weekly basis to look into these reports and classify them, whether the matter qualifies to be investigated or it is a matter for referral to another ministry or department for administration, or it is a matter that we can recultivate through our intelligence assets so that it becomes investigatable. So this is the process. And then once we have left your contacts, immediately it is classified or it is referred, our officers will get in touch with you and tell you about the welfare or the status of the matter that we have reported. So that if it is referred, they will give you the person and the place where they have referred it to, so that those people can get in touch with you. So if it is investigated, we go through it until the matter is registered at court. When the matter is registered at court for the first time, we dispatch a press release to say so and so appeared before this and this court, charged with this and that and that and that. This is a way of giving feedback to the public, but especially those who report anonymously. They will know that, oh no, this matter was, investigated all out and then it went even to court. And then when the matter is concluded at court as well, we also dispatch a press release from the Public Relations Office. Whether the person is sentenced to jail or is acquitted and discharged, we also give this feedback to the public so that they can know what is happening at the DCEC.
Okay, and I heard you mention instances of anonymity. So if I want to become a whistleblower and report to the DCEC, I have that option to not leave any of my details.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. When you report to the DCC, you've got an option whether you want to to share your names, contacts, and be able to testify before court to say I was part of the deal, or you just want to say no, I saw it happen, or I heard about it from somebody, so I don't want to be known. You've got that choice.
Okay, and are there instances where you find that reports of corruption are in fact done with malicious intention? Somebody comes and says, Sonia, the BCPI is doing this, that, and the third, only for the DCEC to find that that person did so with bad intent towards either Sonia or the BCPI or whoever they would be accusing in that situation.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of those, but through my period at the DCC, I can remember one or two incidents whereby some people had made malicious report. In other cases, it was a wife reporting her husband because she wanted us to go and check into the accounts to see how the money is being, the transactions, where they are going. But our law prohibits that. Malicious reporting to the DC is an offense that is punishable under the Corruption in Income Act. Once we investigate and realize that the report was malicious, we can take that person and make them to account for their malicious reporting.
Okay, no, that's interesting. I think also now, perhaps as we come to the close of our conversation, I would bring it back to Botswana and your engagement with them. What would you say currently is the support that you need from Botswana in helping you carry out your mandate, if at all there is anything you need from Botswana? It could be academia, civil society, and just the ordinary Motswana.
What I can request from Botswana is that the DCEC is an organization that was formed to serve Botswana. Botswana have every right to question the functions of the DCEC. So Botswana should support the DCEC, one, by reporting matters of corruption or suspicious transactions, report to the DCEC. Two, work with the DCEC if we ask you to come and give evidence. Support the DCEC, be a patriot to your country and stand out and fight corruption. Three, do not be corrupt. Don't give bribes, don't accept bribes, don't promise bribes. And if you see this happening, please report to the DCEC. And then we also want Botswana to participate on anti-corruption activities. There was a point whereby we tried to form community anti-corruption clubs. They wanted to be paid. These are voluntary institutions. These are voluntary associations whereby we wanted Botswana to stand up and say we want to fight corruption. Corruption is a crime, just like theft or robbery. So we wanted them to do in communities, fight corruption. But they collapsed because they wanted incentives. They wanted to have monthly salaries to be members of those community associations. So in a nutshell, we are fighting for Botswana, we are fighting for the country. But if the country goes down, each and every member of this country, each and every citizen of this country goes down with the country. So currently we are fine as a country. We still can buy the Kombonya and Ahale. But where we are going, if this is the trajectory that we want to take, we are going to very, very hard.
No, that makes a lot of sense in that regard, because I think generally we're also finding that in the execution of BCPI's mandate as a civil society organization, a lot of it rests on Botswana's reception of us and their assistance in helping us carry out our activities. I think then perhaps my last question would be that which we got from supporters and followers of BCPI, and it relates to the issue of a perceived lack of independence of DCEC. What is there to say about the independence of the DCEC? Do you find that there is a general public view that the DCEC is not independent, and what would you say to anybody who is doubting the efficiency of the organization on account of thinking that it lacks independence based on how it is created?
The current setup of the DCEC, it does not stop it from functioning. As long as there is what we call political will to fight corruption, then the DCEC will function. Political will here, I'm deriving it from all aspects of polity, meaning the government, meaning the civil society, the youth, and all sectors of the society. If they all have intention to fight corruption, then the DCEC will function. The independence of the DCEC, I derive it from the act itself that sets out the DCEC, the Corruption and Economic Crime Act. It says the Director General of the DCEC, although appointed by the President, only accounts to the President through an annual report before the 31st of March. Just an annual report that details the activities of the DCEC throughout the year. But in as far as what to investigate, whom to investigate, when to investigate, that is a sole prerogative of the DCEC Director General in consultation with his superiors or his executive management. He doesn't take orders from anybody on what to prosecute, when to prosecute, and how to investigate. And to us, or to me, according to my opinion, this is independent enough. But of course, yeah, I hear you when you say people out there, they feel that maybe the independence is a bit cajoled. But to us, it is fine. I can give you a scenario whereby some will say, perhaps the DCEC should report to Parliament. There is a story of an African country whereby the Anti-Corruption Commission was dissolved because of a motion by Parliament. They just said the Anti-Corruption Commission was investigating one of the parliamentarians, and they moved a motion in Parliament to say, let us dissolve this institution. agree, you know how they vote in parliament. So they moved, let us dissolve the institution. And they said, and they dissolved the institution. Just voting out to the office of the president or it reports to parliament is fine. As long as there is a will for the DCC to function, the DCC will function okay in wherever it is reporting. So the current setup is fine, but if they want to change it to a different setup, is fine. What matters is the will, the political will to support the fight against corruption. If it is there, then the DCC will function wherever it is placed.
Okay, no, that is quite understood, Mr. Motshoganetsi. I think also perhaps from the BCPI perspective would be that another way of, ensuring public trust on the DCC would be such engagements such as this, where the Directorate is open to engaging, whether it be civil society or just individuals that want to question. I think the more the DCEC and any other oversight institutions are receptive to public curiosity, public inquisition, then it goes a long way in giving public support. But I think perhaps you could now switch on your camera as we close our conversation. For those of you that are watching from wherever you may be watching us from, this was an installment of the Know Your Institution series. We have been running it on our Facebook page for the month of March, profiling the Directorate on Corruption and Economic Crime. And here today, I had with me the Public Relations and Communications Officer at the DCEC, Mr. Lentswe Motshoganetsi. So, Mr. Motshoganetsi, I would just like to take this time to thank you so much for acceding to BCPI's request to engage you and the Directorate. And I don't know if perhaps you have any parting words that you would like to share with Botswana, especially those that follow BCPI that have shown an interest in engaging on issues of governance.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting the DCC. And let me once more, say to BCPI, you are doing a very good job. The DCC's work becomes lessened and easy if we got bodies or institutions such as Lunayana, spreading the fight against corruption. Most of the ways in which we can fight corruption is through advocacy, and advocacy. This will ultimately lead to mindset change, and we will see Botswana now abhorring corruption, looking down on somebody who is accused of being corrupt. What about Moshema somebody is a rapist or is a serial killer? How to corrupt or we want that to happen within the minds and the cultures and the behaviors. So keep up the good work. The DCC is open to join us in the fight against corruption. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. We look forward to engaging the Directorate in other avenues, but still on the mandate of fighting corruption and pushing public education on the same. For you watching at home, keep updated with our BCPI social media. We'll be profiling other organizations for your benefit. So keep your eye on the page for the month of April to see what organization we're going to be profiling. And for the month of March, we will still be profiling the DCEC. We will still be sharing fun facts and tidbits about the DCEC and its mandate, and we look forward to your engagement. Thank you so much.